I hear this phrase all the time. There are no good men left. I am so sick of dating. And then I think to myself, are you so sick of it that you'd consider joining the church? Because that's where I was at just 19 years old. In college, I had a slew of terrible dates. Life really wasn't going my way, and I was ready for something consistent. Sisterhood. I was so serious about this that I stayed at a monastery for a few days. The first night that I'm there, I'm sitting at a cafeteria table with about 6 other sisters, and I'll say, Sister Catherine, to my right, is asking me questions about my life, and I am captivated. She's funny, kind, clever. She genuinely is curious about who I am as a person. And then she turns to me directly and asks point blank, Adrianna, have you ever considered becoming a sister? And without any hesitation, I say, yeah, I'd considered it. She was like a mountain lion who cornered her prey, and I was so unsuspecting. Later on that evening, she took me on a tour of the monastery, which had strong resemblances to a Greek sorority house. That really spoke to my 19-year-old brain. And here's why. Because sisters live together, they dine together, they rally around a common cause, and in my case, recruit new members. To answer the question you're all thinking, I did find my faith in men. I am happily married to the love of my life, but I can't help but look back at the situation and with fondness chuckle, not because Sister Catherine almost convinced a 19-year-old Catholic-raised nursing student to join the sisterhood. My very devout grandmothers would have been thrilled. But because she demonstrated real therapeutic communication for the first time in my life. She taught me more about what it means to be seen and heard in 3 days than what my prestigious nursing university had taught me in 3 years. Here's how she did it. She didn't talk at me and say, you should become a sister. Let's go sign the papers right now. She asked me why I had considered it. She gave me space to answer, and she was genuinely curious. And that's what therapeutic communication is. A structured, empathetic exchange designed to build trust and reduce emotional distress. Therapeutic communication has many roots, but one of the main ones goes back to Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing. She was born in the 1800s and cared for patients during the Crimean War and found terrible sanitary conditions. She is known as the lady with the lamp because she would always carry her trusty lamp at night to check in on patients, which is actually the origin of being woken up overnight in the hospital. Don't fact check that. But she did emphasize being present with patients, withholding judgment, and fully facing people when they're speaking with you. Hence, therapeutic communication was born. Now, when you think of that calm presence, the last thing you might be thinking of is an ER. Lucky for me, that's where I have worked for most of my nursing career since 2014. It is admittedly a very challenging environment, but I have a deep fondness for it because I've had the amazing opportunity to meet thousands of human beings. And here are a few high-level takeaways. People don't just bring in their one medical concern. They bring in complex medical histories, complex family dynamics, and social issues. Every single person that I've had the opportunity to care for wants their concerns to be validated. They want to be heard. As a nurse, I can't do it all. But what I can do is build a bridge between the complex medical world and every person's individual, unique situation. And here's a bit about what that bridge can look like. And for full transparency, I have permission to share the story from my family. I am about 17 years old, sitting next to my grandfather, or my abuelito's, hospital bed. He's in the ICU and he's incredibly ill. He's connected to every line and drain you can think of. There's a constant beeping in the background. And cramped into this little hospital room are other adult family members. And we're all leaning into the doctor who's giving us an update on my abuelito's condition. And it's not looking good. He's going to require more surgeries and a longer hospital admission. And then all of a sudden the doctor gets a page and runs out of the room because of an emergency. And my family and I are left sitting at the edge of our seats wondering, oh my gosh, what's next? What do we do? As the doctor runs out of the room, the nurse walks into the room. She is a stark contrast to my family and I. She's chill. We are wound up. She's suave. We are just about to jump out of our seats with anxiety. And then she opens up the conversation by saying, hey everybody, I'm going to be taking care of him. He's going to be with us for a while. I'm going to start my assessment. And then all of a sudden, it was like an emotional bomb went off in the room. And that might not even be an aggressive enough phrase for what happened. My family starts throwing words and hands all over the room. They're going, who's gonna take care of Dad? What's next? Who's gonna stay with him tonight? Who's gonna take care of his house? So much anxiety happening in that space. And I'm sitting in the corner watching everybody devolve into chaos. Then all of a sudden, we hear from the corner of the room a voice like a buttery lullaby. And it's the nurse. She stepped out from behind the computer and she said, hey everybody, I can see that there's some stress. I'd like to help. What questions do you have? And then all of a sudden, my family took a collective breath that pulled the flames from the emotional bonfire raging in the room, and then there was conversation. My family cares deeply about my abuelito. That is where the stress comes from. In that moment, he wasn't someone who could care for himself anymore, but someone who required frequent checkups, a longer hospital admission, medical equipment. These things put incredible financial strain, not just on him, but everybody in the family, and also straining time in relationships. And if you step back and look at that situation, I'm not pointing fingers at the doctors or the way my family responded, but there was broken communication between the system and my family. And that is actually a major cause of conflict and distress in these really challenging situations. A 2020 study found that the #1 frustration of caregivers is communication with providers. See a lot of nodding, probably resonates. This means difficulty with engaging in the decision-making process, the struggles of long-distance caregiving, and also difficulty getting a hold of providers. The ER didn't make it out scot-free. We are the #2 stressor, according to this study. This is where therapeutic communication comes into play and where you can pull from these tactics. And you can show up the way like Sister Catherine did for me or the way the nurse did for my family in that situation. These are things that I've learned throughout a 4-year of Bachelor of Science nursing degree, a 2.5-year Master of Science nursing degree with a focus in leadership, but most importantly, by helping people navigate the worst days of their life by the time they see me. You didn't know this, but you're all leading nurses. The hospital down the street is gonna be thrilled. Okay. Here are the techniques, and I implore you to just pick one to work on. No one is expecting you to leave a pro just yet. These techniques are silence, active listening, and open-ended questions. Let's start with silence, which really means to pause and breathe. If you do anything at all when these stressful, high conflict situations come up as a caregiver or in life, breathe. Give yourself the gift of time to absorb the information and allow the people at the other end of the table to really hear what is going on. 4 seconds can make or break a response because words are like a tube of toothpaste. Once they're out, they cannot go back in. That takes us to our next point, active listening, which is positioning ourselves in a way to demonstrate that we are really hearing and absorbing what people have to say. Now imagine this. You just found out you got the dream job. And you are so excited, you run to your friend's cubicle and you start sharing the news with them, but then you notice they're looking at their phone, not making eye contact, and you're not really sure if they're paying attention. This probably stings, right? Sure, they hear you, but are they listening? Here's what active listening physically looks like. We're facing the person speaking. eye contact, and a consistency that's really hard for today, I know. No phone. Please put it down on the floor, anywhere else, but not on the conversation. And if you're having a virtual conversation, turn on the camera, put yourself in the middle of a screen. All of these things add up and make a real big difference. Last up, we have open-ended questions. There is absolutely a time and place for yes and no questions. But in the context of a therapeutic conversation or a caring conversation, we are engaging with the intent to understand what people are saying. We're engaging with curiosity. A simple way to say this is, hey, could you tell me more? Think of how different my abuelito's situation would have looked if my family had these skills. So different, and also much less stressful. The nurse taking care of my abuelito, I am sure she was taken aback. She only restated what the doctor had just shared, but here's how she walked my family back from that ledge. When my family exploded, she didn't just insert herself into the conversation. She took a breath. She took a breath. She gathered herself. Silence. No one in the room shouted, I am so stressed, but it was very clear that people were big mad based on the body language, the vocal tonality, and what was being said. Active listening. The nurse didn't shut down the conversation, although that probably would have been appropriate, to be honest. She said, hey, I want to help. What can I answer for you? Open-ended questions. Florence Nightingale would be so proud. When we show up in a way that builds trust and teaches people that we actually care about what they have to say, there's a hormone that's released in our brain called oxytocin. Oxytocin is known as the trust-building hormone. And when this hormone is released, people might start to view you as one of them, one of their own, part of the group. And I don't know about you, but the last thing I want to do is start unnecessary conflict with somebody in my group. These things together create trust and reduce conflict inherently. But please use your new super communication powers for good, not evil, because they can be really manipulative. But here we're only using them for human connection. And an important note about human connection in any capacity is demonstrating respect for people on the other end of the table. I have met people from every single walk of life as an ER nurse, and these skills have served me so well as I meet people in my day-to-day life. And I realize that people have their own set of beliefs, cultures, and challenges. Actually, this is something that we study pretty extensively in nursing school. And I'm not just talking about nationality like Mexican or Canadian. I'm talking about differences between ages, genders, and religions. All of these things together impact the way people show up and engage with the healthcare system. And one way to build trust very quickly is through those three skills of listening and engaging with curiosity. As you move forward and have different types of challenging conversations, whatever they are, maybe you're sitting across the table from someone where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to relate to this person. Please don't forget to breathe, to listen, and to ask. You will build bridges instead of a bigger divide, and that's what a caring conversation is all about. Thank you for your time.